This is another in our online presentations for Berklee Global Initiatives. This is Berklee Unlocked Asia. We're joined today by our partners at Siam Music Yamaha in Thailand. And this event is also co-sponsored by our host for Berklee activities in Singapore, the School of Music and Art Singapore. Berklee alum Keith Kwok is the founder and CEO there. And so we have Gap and Yudapong from Siam Music Yamaha. Gap and Yudapong, thanks for joining. It's great to see you. And we're looking forward to being with you in a couple of weeks when Berklee makes our visit to you in Bangkok for some clinics and master classes and auditions and Berklee alumni things and all of that. Berklee Unlocked is an online event that Daniel and I and our team are doing to get connected with musicians from around the world before we come and actually see you in person. And now, Daniel, you've done a couple of these and you're heading off maybe to Mexico very soon, right?
Correct. That'll be Monday.
Awesome. And you're going to be visiting our Berklee Global partner there. So we've got folks on the road. I'm heading out to Greece on Monday to our partner school in Athens and Thessaloniki. So we're on the road these days, and connecting with us remotely and connecting with us in person for these clinics and master classes is definitely a way to learn more about Berklee. This session, I'm going to do a little presentation on performing music and practicing and preparing for concerts and auditions and things like that, especially for those of you that are planning to come and do an audition for Berklee, or if you're auditioning for a band or getting ready for a show, this session might be really, really helpful that Daniel and I are going to present to you. And we're going to be engaging you throughout the session. It's hopefully we're going to have a little bit of a dialogue here, and we'd really like to learn about you. So those of you that are connecting with us, could you in the chat here in Zoom, it'd be great if you could tell us where you're connecting from in the world and what kinds of music do you play? What instrument do you play? Or if you're a vocalist, singer, songwriter, jump in there. I see Laurel just chimed in there, but yeah, it'd be really cool if you could tell us where you're from. I play guitar and trombone, do a lot of writing and producing. Daniel, you're a guitarist as well and a writer, and you've actually done some scoring as well for film, right?
That's right.
And I know Carlos, are you still playing these days? Ah, yes. See, Carlos and I played together when he was at Berklee. He's a fantastic
Yeah,
musician.
still playing.
Yeah, man. Excellent. We got to get together soon. Get on the bandstand or get in the recording studio. Um, we strongly encourage you, as Daniel shared in the chat, to connect with us on social media. Follow us at Berklee Global. And if you're from the Spanish-speaking world in Latin America, you can also follow us on Berklee Espanol. And we have events going on all the time, online and in person. We'd really love to connect with you as much as you're able to join us. All right, we got Kim here from Toronto. Excellent vocals and saxophone. Lovely. And anybody else, feel free to jump in and chime in and share your stuff. I know I've had the chance to do some performing with Gap in Singapore. He's an incredible vocalist and arranger, band leader and producer, and Yudapong, who is an incredible pianist, and they're both amazing educators as well at Siam Music Yamaha. All right, so here we go. Yep, perfect. Thank you, Daniel. So we're going to jump in. I'm going to do a little presentation here with Daniel. We're going to talk about performing music. Going to be asking you some questions. Oh, cool. Thank you. Kaing, yeah, excellent. Vocals and drums. Nice. Very cool. All right, so let's go over here and I will share my screen. Hopefully all this will look groovy. And we'll jump right into the session. We'll do a little Q&A toward the end, and then we'll go from there. Here we go. Can you all see this? Awesome. So again, we're here with Siam Music Yamaha and also with the School of Music and Arts in Singapore. This is the first of two Berklee Unlocked sessions for Asia. The next one we'll share details with you toward the end of this session. It's going to be with our chair of songwriting, Berklee alum, award-winning writer and producer Rodney Alejandro is going to be doing a session on songwriting and production. And then when we come to Singapore and we come to Bangkok, the clinics that we're going to do in person are going to focus on performance, songwriting, production, all kinds of things. So be sure to join us in person. We're going to get a chance to play some music together, maybe play your songs that you bring as well. All right, so what makes a great performance, Daniel? What are the things that you love about performing music or when you go to see a show? What's the things that really strike you as being really important to make a great performance?
I think if the performance is equally important to all the musicians on stage as well as the audience, that's what makes a great performance. I've been to like several concerts. Some of them were professional, some of them were amateur, some of them were like the gigs at the local club or whatnot. And in many occasions, I've seen a great level of motivations from all the participants and all the stakeholders on stage. And in some other occasions, you see somebody who is more spotlighted and somebody else who's just there to be there and support the band, right? That is very noticeable, in my opinion, when that happens. So, from my perspective, everybody needs to put 100% and more, whatever possible. It doesn't matter what the style of music is. Every type of music can be super fun if everybody's putting like the right energy into it. Even a style of music that you're not quite into. Has ever happened to you, Jason? That you were at a place, it was like, oh, that's not my kind of music, but this is fun. No?
Well, yeah, I think that's the most important thing is it's got to be a positive experience.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what the genre of music is, you got to connect with the audience, and so you have to bring great energy. I completely agree. And folks that are connected here, please put in the chat like what for you makes a great performance, whether you're performing or you're at a show. What are the things that really stick out for you that make it like memorable? I guess is really the thing, right? You'd like, I was at that show or I performed that show with that band, and it was like really it really connected with the audience. It really connected with the band on stage. So please feel free to jump in and share. It'd be really great to hear from you as well. All right, so here are some things that as you're putting together your performances and your shows, we're going to talk about some broad topics. These are things that many of us are aware of, but sometimes it's good to kind of go through them again and just kind of touch on them and making sure that you're remembering these things as you're putting your performances together. All right. These are, making the most of your rehearsals, how you prepare, how you put everything together. If you're leading the project or supporting the project, knowing what your role is and what your responsibilities are as the leader or as the band member or the ensemble member, if it's a choir or an orchestra, right? How you engage the audience is really, really important. Again, whether you're in front of the band or if you're part of the ensemble, all of that is really critical in preparing. And you can really actually practice this to make sure that when you do get up on stage, that you're really delivering the best experience possible. Crafting your set is really important. You got to dig in there and think about the music that you're going to play and the kind of the story that you're going to tell over that, short set you're going to do or that really long concert. And then we'll talk a little bit about coping with anxiety because I know I still get it. There's times when I walk into a musical situation and sometimes I get a little nervous. And so how do I kind of shake those nerves and get into the right frame of mind to make sure that I'm actually, like you said, Daniel, having fun? All right, so preparing for your performance. So we're going to talk about practice routines. Do any of you have practice routines that you do? You want to throw your notes in here for whether you're practicing on your own or practicing with your band? It'd be really cool to get some feedback from you. I know I have some ideas about practicing that we'll dig into a little bit. Daniel, like when you're preparing for a show, what are some of the things that you're really, because I know you recently did a couple of shows that you really had to kind of work up a lot of new music. So how do you jump in and make sure that you're ready for your show?
Yeah, so I moved through the years. I moved through different patterns of practice. Before, and it's just because you're young, and then you kind of like refine this as you go through the years. When you start, when I was like much younger, I thought, okay, I need to practice for this guitar, hands on it, just practice, right? But then over the years, you realize that you're not practicing the guitar. You're not practicing in in general. You're practicing that show, right? You need to be practicing that show. And that means everything around the tunes that you'll be playing, the coordination with the musicians, knowing where, the saxophone player is going to be playing a solo, for example, knowing the structure of the song. We all rely on charts, and that's great. But if your charts evaporate while you're playing, can you still can you still make it through? If your chart falls off the stand while in the middle of a solo, what you gonna do? So I think like being very familiar with the with your with the repertoire that you're gonna be playing that night, being familiar with everybody, making sure that everybody's on the same page. That's part of the practice routine. I was in the green room in Korea when we did the show, and I was, asking questions. Hey, are we 100% sure we're gonna start that song like that? Yes, great. Just checking in with everybody, because the way that you react to your show and the level, I don't know, of anxiety or excitement that you bring is so different from the person in front of you. You just don't know how that person, especially if it's somebody that you don't play with on a regular basis, how they going to like approach that event. And you just want to make sure that everybody's on the page. You just want to make sure that you and the whole band can do a good job. So that's part of my routine.
Absolutely. I appreciate everything you're saying there. It's really important to 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 look at the fine details and work on all of the elements of the performance. I think having a regular practice routine, at least for me as a trombonist, I know some folks here as well probably have the same thing. It's really hard to maintain the technical ability, the overall musicianship and sound. So being able to get a regular practice routine in as much as possible. I know we're all super busy, but if you're playing shows regularly, I know especially for me as a brass player, it's important to have the horn on my face as much as possible to maintain the stamina as well. Because a lot of times, we're playing pretty long shows, and you've got to be able to deliver. You have to kind of keep yourself in really good health, in really good shape physically, in really good shape mentally. Because music, when you're performing, focus is critical. So, putting together, yeah, exactly, Carlos. I know, especially as a saxophonist, right? It's like the embouchure, the air, everything you're going to do is really, really critical. And and then really working on the fine detail of the song. It's one thing to play through the music, it's another thing to put the song together, the pieces of music together, and deliver them musically. Getting in a regular schedule or setting a rehearsal schedule with your band obviously is really important. And then making sure that I really love this idea of practice like you're going to perform. And that's a hard thing to remember. I have to, I write it down here because I have to remember, like when I'm shedding, however I practice, I'm going to end up performing that way. So posture, everything about, the way I start songs, the way I end songs, even etudes and exercises, it's really important to kind of go back and remind myself to keep focused, because that will come out in the performance when I'm on stage. Um, let's see, what's next here? Wow, yeah, look at that. These are just some of the things that we probably think about when we're practicing. So it's really, really hard to, you know, manage to work on all of these things individually. So a lot of the things that we do, and there's another clinic that you and I do, Daniel, that's called Optimizing Your Practice Routine. And I think we probably have it on our YouTube page. But it's really critical to make the best use of your time when you're practicing on your own, and to optimize your time so that you're combining different elements of your overall musicianship in each of the exercises that you're doing. So the technique, the sound, the intonation, the time, the groove, the phrasing, the stylizing of the music. You can actually create exercises or be mindful of all those things as you're practicing. So, what I like to do is I've got my handy dandy little journal that I write down what I'm working on, and I come up with my plans of what I'm going to be practicing. There's some things that I'm going to be working on for months because they're really complicated things that are going to take me a lot of time. They might be new things that I'm trying to develop on my instrument. But then there might be a list of songs for an upcoming show that I have to practice. and then kind of making notes of what I'm working on, what worked, what I have to go back and practice, and and how I'm going to focus my time and energy. So have like a little hand, little book like this is a really good thing. You can throw it in your bag and have it with you. If you want to put it on your phone, you can do that too. The danger, of having your phone in the practice room is obviously you're going to end up turning it on and getting distracted. So that's why I like to do it analog and write it by hand. So those are some things to consider. We've got some really great resources on Berklee's website that we'll share with you in a moment. There's a lot of free content that we have available, and we're going to share some details. This is a video. I'm not going to go into it today because I'm mindful of the time that we have with everybody. But Leo Blanco, Berklee alum from Venezuela, has some really cool videos from Berklee Pulse, and these are great resources that you can go to our website at any time and jump in and check out his approach to practicing, his approach to using a journal, his approach to the mindset of practicing individually, and then how that transfers to what you might be doing when you're playing in an ensemble. So, some things that you might consider for your best practice, being effective with your practices: set goals. Set up some short term goals, set up some long term goals. You know, plan a routine. If you don't have a routine, talk to some of your fellow musicians and ask them if they've got a plan, if they can share sort of their musical ritual of when they're practicing. Um, I can actually, in a minute here, when we get out of the PowerPoint, I'll drop one of my little plans and I'll share it with all of you here so you can take a look at it. You might be able to use it as a guide. It's something that is like for a 1 hour, 1.5 hour practice session that you could shrink down to 30 minutes, or you could expand it if you had more time. If you haven't done this, you might want to use a practice journal. It's a really good way, even if you just keep small notes, to help you stay targeted on your goals. It's something that a lot of teachers, a lot of friends that I know recommend, and I do use it to keep track of the things that I'm trying to improve or the songs I'm trying to learn and memorize. Create a comfortable practice space. A nice quiet space that you're able to set up and just kind of drop in and really focus quickly on what you're doing, or know, like if you're going to school to practice, or if you're using a rented practice space, or you're going over to a family member or friend's house that you're going to be practicing at, just know that the environment is comfortable and you're removing the distractions so that you can just really focus on your work. If you're going to use your phone, use it for the metronome, or use it to record yourself so you can go back and listen to the thing that you were working on and critique yourself, and just try to stay away from, you know, answering the phone calls, the messages that are coming in, or drifting over into social media and then having your practice session evaporate.
Or buying
Uh,
guitars.
yeah, no, right? Exactly. Um, One of the cool things that I think is really interesting that I'd like to share is when you're practicing the music, try to learn the context of the music. If it's an exercise, read the book or find out like why the person wrote this exercise, why they dug in and tried to, create an exercise for you to work on this aspect of your musicianship. If you're working on a well-known piece of music, it's really cool to like learn about the songwriter, the artist, the producer, the band that originally played it. Learn the history, the sort of mythology around that music. It might inspire you as you're creating your version of it, or if you're trying to actually copy that music specifically. And I'm not sure, Daniel or even Carlos, I see you there, but if you want to jump in and share your thoughts on this, I'd love to hear, like, what are some of the most effective best practices for your individual practice that help you to stay on task and continue to grow musically?
Yeah, I think so. For me, I moved past the idea of playing the right notes. So, because in a way, in a
So are
way,
you saying that you play jazz?
yes, I only play no wrong notes. Oh, for me, it's like so playing the right notes. It's like literally the minimum requirement, right? Everything that you do is like you build on top of that. Like none of the guitarists, they, oh sorry, the musicians, I should say, that you appreciate did that for playing the right notes. It's because of all those factors and all those power words that Jason showed you in a couple of slides before that, built on top of playing the right notes, that makes them great, right? Is their feel, is their vibe. So when you practice, of course you're gonna be playing the right notes. Because if you're not playing the right notes, then you just need to take a few steps back, right? But then, like, including your practice, the things that make those notes special. And it doesn't matter if it's two or three of them or a million, it doesn't matter. Make sure that you work on your feel, make sure that you work on your dynamics, make sure that the notes that you're playing really make a difference when you're playing them, right? Otherwise, it just becomes an exercise. How many times have you seen let's say, a musician play a song that you love, and they're playing all the right notes, and you still feel like, that wasn't great, right? But they were all the right notes. How's that possible? Well, there's so much that goes beyond playing that it some of the stuff, we teach that at Berklee. We teach you how to have a field instrument, to play two notes and make the person in front of you melt, right? How do you do that? There's a whole magic around that, and this is something that you want to develop, because when you're playing those notes, people are going to start to recognize that's your style, and that's your vibe, and that's the magic that you bring to to the show. They want to hear you play because you know that that's just the way you sound.
Yeah, I love that.
Build your
Carlos, do you have any thoughts, man? What do you got?
I think what Daniel is saying is very true. Like your intentions for the what you're playing, like it's not just playing notes. And I think sometimes people get so okay, that's the correct arpeggio. And I think Walter Beasley always talked about that. Like, yo, every note you play, you need to like convey something. What are you trying to say? And so I think also there's different situations depending on if you've played with these people before. Communication is very key, because if, let's say, you guys have never played before, how you prepare this music is going to be dictated by the amount of experience you have with the people you're going to be playing at this particular gig at. So it's a very different practice if you guys are all, old friends who know exactly what you do. And if it's somebody you've never played with before, now you're going to prepare in a different way. So I think what Daniel says is very key, is like, if you don't have an intention in your playing, it comes across as fake. It comes across as like, oh, I'm just showing off. I can play a bunch of notes. Good for you, but that doesn't mean anything.
I love that. Yeah, I got that. And we've got another Berkeley alum joining us here. Volt, how are you doing?
Hello everyone. Oh, sorry for my voice. Yeah. Hello Jason. Hello Daniel. Hello Karos. And everyone. So I'm doing good. I'm on the teaching for my student. She gonna audition for Berkeley next month in Thailand as well. So we have exactly time with the, with the session. So I just invite her to join us as well. So I want to actually have some question for you as well. But I would like to share my thought about like the practice routine that make an effective practice first. I'm really agree that like every note is very important, and and for me as a violinist, it's very important because like every note you can make it right or wrong under your finger right away. It's very sensitive. The way that you vibrato, the way that you put your finger on your instrument, everything. So yeah, I'm very agree with Carlos about like make every note like sing it out, thinking it off like a vocal or something like that. As an instrumental, I think that's very important. And one thing that I really like to do is like when I go to a gig or when I go to school, I try to thinking of what I want to practice on, what I want to be better, what sound that I would like to learn. Like back when I want to learn about like wow, Snarky Puppy have a very great sound. The solo is crazy good. So I keep listening it and then thinking of like okay, I really want to go back home and get the feeling of like I need to get at least one of the short phrasing of how whatever that they able to play and make it like my I'm sing through it like my own voice. So I really like to make that feeling to myself, to make sure that like I want to learn it, instead
Yeah.
of like just like, oh, I have to practice it.
No, this is awesome. So it's the motivation is really important. You really got to focus and motivate yourself and be really, I don't know, being a musician is an incredible experience because you can always be learning. There's so much music in the world to connect with. And so having the ability to stay curious and also
Yes.
to focus can really make things, make it a magical sort of experience. Um, I did drop in the chat a PDF called the routines packet. And so if you're on a computer, you should download it. If not, you can always follow up with us after the session and we can email it to you. But this is just a guide or a handout to just walk you through ways that you might put together a practice routine. It also has a page in there that talks about transcribing music, which is also an important part of being a musician. And there's a really cool guide in there for those of you that haven't actually worked on transcription in ways that you can actually start doing that and go through the different steps so that you can have a successful experience transcribing music, which to what Carlos, Daniels, and even Volt talked about, um, transcribing music, copying the artistry, the style, and the technique of your favorite artists is really, really critical, no matter what the genre is. It's really, really critical to helping you develop your own vocabulary and style. So grab that handout, all right? Cool. Here's a couple of QR codes. You can take a screenshot or check it out with your phone and take a shot of these. These are links to the Berklee Pulse website for the practice tips and techniques, and also to just take a look at Leo Blanco's lessons online for practice techniques. So when you have time, dig into these. You'll get a little bit of a deeper dive and also get a really incredible artist's perspective on practice routines that might be able to help you improve your work and optimize your practice and help you move forward. Okay. All right. So let's talk about rehearsing. We've all played in orchestras, we've sung in choirs, we've played in bands, and you know, practice time is precious time. It is very precious time. And if you're in school, it's one thing. When you get out of school and you're actually doing it professionally, the old saying that time is money, my goodness. It's really, really important to make sure that we really come prepared for our practice sessions. So, um, here are some things that we think are really important for you to consider. When you're coming to your rehearsal, do as much work ahead of time. Yeah. Jinyu's checking it out. He's seeing all this stuff. Hey, greetings. It's great to see you. Yeah. Um, Prepare. Check out the music. Get it really under your fingers and in your ears. You may not have it memorized for that first rehearsal. You may not have to memorize it at all, but really embrace it. Listen to the different versions, work with backing tracks and play-alongs. If you're finding that some of the music is difficult, slow it down and then speed it up. And see you, Volt. You take care. And then make sure you practice for endurance. This is a really, really important thing. If you're putting together a concert, you have to actually build up your stamina, not just physically for the concert, but musically to make sure that you can deliver for the entire show. Those of you that are vocalists, you know this. If you're a solo instrument like a pianist and you're doing a complete piano recital, this is something that is really, really important. So it's one thing, it's really hard to do it all from the very beginning. You're going to have to do it in pieces and then put the pieces together over time. And be patient with yourself as you're doing this. And what you'll learn is that over a period of years, you'll end up developing your approach to your rehearsal time and ensuring that when you do have to get ready for a recording session or a concert, that you know what it's going to take to get yourself ready. But these are some of the things that pre-work before the rehearsal is critically important. Do not show up to the rehearsal on time. If you show up to the rehearsal on time, you are late. So when I started in school, I remember that if the rehearsal started at 1 o'clock, the downbeat was at 1 o'clock, meaning the baton would drop and the first beat's hitting at 1 o'clock. So that meant you had to get there at least 15 minutes earlier, if not sooner, to make sure that you were warmed up, that you're in your space, that your equipment was set up, and everything was groovy. And this is really important because it's a sign of respect for yourself as a musician, but also the other musicians in the yeah, Ben Elkins would lock the door. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's some people that we studied with that were pretty focused on this idea of being on time. Use the rehearsal to make music. Don't use the rehearsal to practice. Make sure, if you can, get the music ahead of time, get the charts ahead of time, learn the songs ahead of time, or learn what the songs are so you can listen to it, so that when you're in the room and you're working with the ensemble or you're working with your bandmates, that you're working on the actual music. Try to use the rehearsal time to actually perform the songs like you're going to do it on stage. So again, it's, practice like you're going to perform. You do it on your own in your practice space, but you've got to do it in the ensemble with the band. And then make plans for the unexpected. Rehearsal time is a great time to have mistakes. Actually, it's the best time to have mistakes. I know, Daniel, you and I have done some shows together, and, in that rehearsal time, that's when you work out the bugs, you work out the bumps. It's like, oh, are we going back to that one section? Or what happens if I miss that cue? What do I do? And how you're going to communicate in the band. Ask those questions and work those things out in the practice space with the band. That way, when you do get up on stage, even though everybody knows exactly how the song is going to go, you hope, sometimes people make mistakes on stage. That's okay. You can't let the audience know. The idea is you've got to be able to communicate with the members of the band and be able to, make those smooth transitions that continue the music and deliver what's happening for the audience. How many of you here, raise your hand, have a band and you're a band leader? You can raise your zoomy hand. It'd be great to see all the band leaders in the group. Band leaders, your job is super important. You're the big motivator. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. You've got to know the music for your ensemble. You really have to prepare so that when you walk in, all the members of the group have confidence in you leading the rehearsal and you leading the concert. You've got to know the members of your band. You have to know what their strengths are and where they have challenges so that you can support them and make sure that they feel confident and comfortable with the music that they're performing. And you need to set some expectations for the band members. It's really, really critical for you to for the band members to know what you're trying to create, the experience that you're trying to create, the musical vision that you're going for, or at the very least that just the way you're going to run the session. If you can, share the music online. Share the charts, share the audio. Nowadays, it's so easy to do. You can even do it in WhatsApp or WeChat. Doesn't matter. You can get stuff out there to all the members of the band. Provide constructive criticism. If you hear something that's not going well, stop the group. Say, hey, listen, I think we could work on that. We can get that groove isn't like locking in. Let's just focus on that. Or I know you're having trouble with that line over there. Why don't you take a second and kind of like, find out where it's lying on the instrument, figure out what you need to do to get that happening. And if you need to do it and bring it back to the next rehearsal, you can do that as well. And just be positive and encourage your band members. Okay. Daniel, with some of the shows and things that you've been doing, do these things sound familiar?
Oh, 100%. I mean, from getting there, not on time, getting there before the time set. I mean, as a guitarist, I'm the guy that gets there, wants to choose an amplifier because there's two or three of them, wants to put all the effects together, needs to make sure that I get my sound. So there's no way I can show up on time. Like I gotta be there like 20, 30 minutes before.
Yeah.
Just, and another thing is that these are the little things that make you comfortable. Because I'm sure like every musician has felt the same way. You get to a place, you just don't feel like you have your sound going on. That's a bummer, on your motivation. It's a bummer on your confidence, regardless if you're practicing or you're playing a concert. So put yourself in your spot. Meaning that what is your comfort zone? What is your if your comfort zone is being there, make sure that you get there on time and you get your sound because that makes you confident. Then do that, right? Even the show. This is something that we were discussing with the audience like a few sessions back. Um, when you play your show, do you want to see the venue? Do you need to see the space where you're going to be performing? Some people do. Some people feel more comfortable if they know what the space is going to look like, what the layout, what the landscape is going to look like when they perform. For some people, it just doesn't matter. Like you can put them, I don't know, on the moon in a field, they'll perform just equally as good. But for some others, they just want to know where they're going to end up and what the situation is going to look like. Am I going to be able to see the pianist? Am I going to be able to coordinate with other musician the way I want? So these are the little things that you need to keep in mind, and you need to know yourself most importantly.
Yeah. I love what Jing you dropped in here about, never showing the audience that, something is going amiss when you're doing a performance. And this is the practice like you perform mentality as well, Daniel. And I think it's really critical that you're delivering an experience, and that's what the audience wants. So these are really, really, really cool things to keep in mind. All right. If you're a band member, your job is to support the leader and create the best musical experience possible. So, obviously, you're utilizing your practice time and you're making sure that you're working up the music in advance as best you can. If you're not given the music in advance, the personal practice time is doing all that nuts and bolts kind of work so that when you do walk into a musical situation in a rehearsal, you are as prepared as possible for anything that might be put in front of you to perform. And this is a really, really critical thing to learn. When you're putting together your short and long-term goals or you're looking at your journal, you might carve out different parts of your practice to work on some of the things that you're going to face. Sight reading is always one, right? You've got to be able to work on your reading. You've got to be able to improvise over different grooves and in different styles. You got to be able to use your ears. So doing some kind of ear training or ear development rhythmically, melodically, harmonically can be really, really helpful so that when you are in a musical situation where you've not seen the music before, you can be really as comfortable and as adaptable as possible. I always have a bunch of music on my music stand here in different keys, in different clefs for different instruments. And I'll read it on whatever instrument I happen to pick up. And it's just part of the reading ritual that I go through because a lot of times I'll show up at a show and I might be playing trombone and I might get an alto saxophone part because that's all they had. And I can't be like, I can't read this. So I need to be able to sit in, have practiced reading in a different clef or from a different instrument, and being able to jump right in and play along with the part that I'm given. A lot of times, as a trombonist, I don't, people aren't bringing bass clef parts in with the melodies. At the very least, I'm reading treble clef parts, sometimes up an octave, and it's, so I actually practice reading pieces of music like that in different styles to just make sure that mentally I know how to do that because it happens all the time. Arrive at your rehearsal in advance. Make sure you're warmed up, tuned up, and ready to play. Bring a pencil. Nowadays, I see more and more musicians coming to rehearsals with iPads, which is great. And then they use their finger and they make little marks on the charts. Completely awesome. Whatever tools and resources you have, you should do that. You got to put your phone down in the rehearsal. It's really critical that you're not distracted and that every second of the rehearsal is being used wisely. A lot of times we find ourselves where a certain section of music is being rehearsed by the band leader. So that gives us a second to actually go back and look at that one spot that I keep missing or that one rhythm that I don't play exactly right. And again, this is something that you've heard before from your teachers, you've heard before from your fellow musicians, band leaders, but you got to go and do it. You really, really need to make that happen. Support your band members. Be positive. When you're working with them, bring good energy to the rehearsal as best you can, no matter how tired you are or what's going on in the world. That practice space is kind of sacred. And it's a really, really cool thing that we get to get together and play music. And go for it. Make mistakes and own the mistakes you make during the rehearsal, because that's the purpose of rehearsing. If you do make mistakes, you're going to get it the next time. Go back and take a look at it and um, give yourself a little, patience and grace, because you are going to make mistakes. We make mistakes all the time, but what we're trying to do is always improve and get better. Daniel, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree. I actually have a question for the audience. How do people feel about recording rehearsals? Kosher, not kosher? Uh,
Well, that's a great question.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
That's crucial. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a little practice of mine that I've always done, specifically for a little bit of everything. You get to assess your sound, not just your sound, because your sound alone is one thing, but your sound with the band, that's a completely different beast,
yep,
right? So, most people, you think your sound is great, but then in that context you're like, oh, I gotta tweak a few things, I gotta reduce the gain or use this other effect or this other amp or whatnot to make the band sound great, not just yourself, right? um, and then going over charts and the structure of certain songs, that really helps me make better notes. I'm a lousy note taker if I'm like keeping an eye on things and stay in tune with the band while we work on the structure or the gig. So I usually go back, and then that's when I make my best notes, because I'm just a lousy note taker if I'm in the moment and I'm doing a bunch of other things. So my preference is to go back and kind of fix it. And in many situations, I was able to share these notes. I know they were right, because you've been listening to a recording, so you know exactly what happened. And you don't go back to, wait, that one tune right in the middle, past the bridge. Did we do that twice or three times or one time? Now you know exactly what you did, and then you can share that with your band, and the band appreciates it.
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. What do you got, Carlos?
I think the other thing too is the microphone never lies. Like you thought you sounded really good,
Oh yeah.
and then you go back and on the way home you're listening back to the recording. You're like, "Holy crap, we got some work to do."
Yes, yeah. The truth machine does not lie. Yeah, this is yeah, early on, um, we used to have those Marantz tape machines that they would bring to the rehearsals,
Oh my God.
and now you can't escape it, because we all have recording devices with us all the time, and you both are spot on. It's even practicing here. I'm not going to set up a microphone with all the equipment, but I can use my phone if I'm working on a part or an etude or an exercise, to just check myself, for those really critical things: intonation, time, feel, phrasing, dynamics. It's really, really important to use the technology to your advantage, for yourself and for your group. Absolutely. Great question. Great thoughts. All right. Engaging your audience and crafting a set list. So, you're putting your band together, you've spent all this time practicing, picking the songs, and you're getting ready for the show. These are just some questions, and maybe you all have other questions that you think about, but these are ones that come to my mind. It's like, why do you want to play live? Why do you want to do this show live? What's the whole idea of it? And I think, for those of you that are here, I'd love to see in the chat, like, what are your thoughts on why you love to perform music live? And then we know that the audience is checking it out, and it depends on where you're doing shows. I know, for those of us that are in music schools, and for those of us that went to a place like Berklee, Berklee's kind of a tough audience. It's an audience of musicians. At Berklee, in our Boston campus, we have 1,100 faculty members, teachers, between Berklee College of Music and the Boston Conservatory. And these are amazing people, wonderful musicians, incredibly supportive artists and educators. And then we've got this little village of musicians running around. with another, what is it, Daniel, about 7,000 students? Or,
Massive. Yeah.
yeah, 6,500, something around that. Musicians, dancers, writers, composers, producers, arrangers. Um, so that's just at the campus in Boston. And I know with our friends at Siam Yamaha, they've got students all over the country, and they do these amazing events. I remember one of the first times I visited Bangkok, Yudapong and Gap took us to their annual concert and competition event, and they had thousands of students um, at Mahidol University, and it was wonderful to see everybody there. So sometimes you're there for a competition. That's why the audience is there. That's why you're performing. A lot of times you're doing, concerts and shows that are showcasing your band, your original music, or, it could be celebrating a specific artist or a holiday or a festival. So you've got to think about all these things and, what people are expecting from the performance. And this is going to help you to develop the concept, the arc of your performance. Sometimes, if you're performing for a holiday or a special occasion, there might be specific songs that you must do, that the band must learn, and so you have to put them in the set list. Other times, they're coming to see your show or your band, and there's certain expectations. Hopefully, you start to develop a rapport with your audience, and there's some favorite songs that they love to hear that your band is going to do. And there might be some surprises that you're going to throw at them. Maybe there's a cover tune that they've never heard you do before that you want to drop into the set. Or if you're doing a recital, the same thing. You have to figure out what the arc of the performance is, and how all that's going to come together. And one of the things that we always think about is you always want to leave your audience wanting a little bit more. You want to be ending on that high note or that really, really strong performance, that really strong piece. And you want the audience to be like, come on back. We want to hear one more. Bring us one. So you should always have an encore ready as well. Yeah, actually, Carlos, I love this. Video recording is really, really cool. Yep, it's an important thing. It really does actually catch those fine details about the stage performance, and we're not addressing that here in this masterclass, but stage performance is an important thing to learn. Your body posture, the way you're addressing one another on stage, the way you're connecting and addressing the audience are all things that you have to keep in mind. All right, getting close here because I want to get to the Q&A. So if I'll ask you, Daniel, Carlos, anybody else that wants to chime in, Gap, Yudapong, do you all get nervous when you're performing, when you're about to go on stage?
It's natural, even for us old timers.
Yeah, what is it that makes you nervous?
I think it's the magic of being in front of other people and sharing your gifts. It never gets old, like that little bit of butterflies in your stomach right before you get you first downbeat. But once it gets going, it's like an old friend. But in the beginning, it's always that little bit of like you just got to get her started.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really an interesting thing. I think the way it's explained to me is that no matter how much we practice, how much we rehearse and put it all together, it's the unknown. It's the unknown of like, is this actually going to work? And this is a really, it's going to happen no matter, it's and ideally, that it gives you a little bit of an edge, that the nerves might give you a little bit of an edge to bring in and focus. But some of the things that you might consider doing, obviously you're doing a lot of work to prepare. So the more you prepare, the more you've rehearsed and played through the songs end to end or the whole concert, the more comfortable you will be and your ensemble will be. So you're going to make the most of your rehearsals. One of the things I heard from one of our colleagues actually that works with us, Bree, she's an incredible cellist, and she was talking about this idea of, giving yourself some time before you get on stage, not like warming up all the way to the moment that you walk on stage, but to kind of like give yourself some distance, and that way you can kind of chill out and get into your yeah, that's right. Fear of performing. that's one of the things. But the idea, I think, to what Carlos is saying is Joshi, is just the idea of that. It's the more you prepare, you're still gonna have a little bit of nerves, but it can really help you focus. But taking those slow, deep breaths can help slow down. Have a glass of water. And just kind of like give yourself some space. Visualize the performance. Getting your mind of like you're going to be getting up on stage and kind of run through what's going to happen. And this is actually a great thing for those of you that are going to be doing an audition as well. You can visualize the audition. Picture yourself walking into the audition room, addressing the people you're going to have the chance to play with or play for, and how you're going to, greet them, how you're going to get yourself set up, ready to perform. And that visualization can really kind of put you in a positive state of mind. And when you do walk into the space, when you walk on stage, introduce yourself. Be confident. The folks are there, the people in the audience are there to see you. If it's that kind of an environment. Sometimes you're just playing in clubs and you have to figure out, different audience, require different things. But a lot of times for concerts and showcases, you've got to walk in and take hold of the reins for that show. Okay, cool. Yeah, medium level of anxiety boosts your performance. I completely agree. And it's just a little bit of nerves that just
Adrenaline.
I think really helps you stay focused. So, I'm gonna let's see what do we got here? We got questions. Oh, we'll go back to that in a minute. I'm gonna stop the sharing business here, and for those of you that are here, I think what we can do is we can just go to the group view, and anybody have any questions about it? Could be anything that Daniel and I have shared, and Carlos and Volt when he jumped in a few minutes ago, and then anybody that has thoughts or ideas that they'd like to share with the audience as well. That would be really cool to hear as well.
Hi, Daniel and Jason and
Hi.
all other people here in this Xinyu. I do have a question. I've been thinking about creating group a new like ensemble course, something like that. Is um what I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. What um how would you construct your first class to a group of amateur musicians who are young adults? They had take some lessons here and there on their instrument, but they never ever had the experience really play with each other. And they had no idea, and they were also so afraid of making mistakes because they learn music in a way that's really like, oh, this is the right way, this is the only right way, the right note to do. And how would you construct your first lesson to help them, to support them to start this journey on playing, learning to playing and enjoying an ensemble experience?
That's great. It's great to hear that you're doing that, and I love that question and the fact that you're thinking about this. The experiences I've had, and I think some of our other colleagues here can jump in as well. One of the things that really brings a group together is um, giving them some material before. You know,
Mhm.
Depending on the genre of the ensemble, the music that you're looking to play, I'd pick one or two pieces of music that are as easy as possible for people to learn
Mhm.
and come together as a group and play. Say we do this a lot with Berklee programs when we do Berklee on the Road programs and Berklee Latino programs. We have a few days with students that have never
Yeah.
met each other before. They're all coming together for the very, very first time, walking
Mhm.
into a room, and in that anxiety that you noted is there.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we walk in and we're like, here are some tunes that you may have heard. If you haven't heard them, you've heard something like this, and they're kind of
Mhm.
groovy if it's popular music.
Yeah.
And there's a low threshold for everybody on their instruments, especially if it's a pop music ensemble where you have, a rhythm section, keyboards, bass, drums, guitars, maybe vocals and horns. it could be music that's repetitive so that they can kind of groove and get into a pocket and kind of
Mm-hmm.
like feel out where their sound is. And from there, you can kind of like understand which direction you could go. You might have a couple of songs after that that are like, hey, you did really, really well with that. Let's try this next one. That's a really great way to start. That I've had success with that. And I'm not sure if Daniel, Carlos, or even Gap and Utapong, our other colleagues here, have thoughts on this. But that's something that I've seen that works. Give everybody find the lowest threshold that everybody feels comfortable and build from there. Because if you can build that confidence and that musical trust with the
Uh-huh.
group, they're going to want to come back.
Uh-huh.
And when you give them a challenge, they'll take the challenge because they'll be motivated.
Break the
Mm-hmm.
ice.
Yeah, break the ice. Carlos, is that so? What do you mean by break the ice? Is it a communication thing? Is it a musical breaking of the ice? What would you do?
I think it's the way you said it. Find a piece that's very easy for almost like any beginner intermediate player to just literally jump on at 1 second. Maybe it could be something that has like a little bit of a bluesy thing, 1/4 back to one, something that anybody can solo over with an
Yeah,
easy melody that pretty much anybody can sing. And then like as you go around and let people have like 8 bars or one chorus through, like you see that people will like you say will get some confidence, and before long you'll see people take more chances and feel more at home.
that's great. I love that. Yeah, that's it's a really I think that's the idea and it's it's one of the most nerve wracking things I think for most musicians. But once they overcome the the challenge of having what I call musical independence. A lot of
Hmm.
times,
Love that word.
when we start playing music, we're playing in a wind ensemble or an orchestra or in a choir. Um, so there's the ability early on to honestly to you can hide, right? you know you don't have to play out. You can, your sound is going to get lost and everything. The conductor or the band leader might be like, hey, I need you to sing out more. The choir director, I need you to play more. But you can hide a lot. But when you start to get into that small musical setting, you can't hide. that's the
Mm-hmm.
that's the big one, is to overcome
Yes.
the fear and develop a little bit of musical independence, because once you get it, then it's kind of like, oh wait, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can build that confidence. And you as the band leader, as the teacher, um, bringing that sort of encouragement and kindness and patience. Those things are really, really important to help people overcome that first hurdle of like, okay, I'm the person that has to sing the melody or play the melody
Yes.
all by myself. It's like, you know
Yes.
something, I'm going to sing it with you. I'm going to play it with you on the
Mm-hmm.
first time, and then you're going to do it on the second time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now I can imagine that in that scenery in my mind as you
Yeah.
describing.
Very cool. Great question. I love that.
Thank
Other
you.
questions about what we shared here today, or other comments and thoughts from anybody? Or if you have questions about Berklee, um, please let us know. Daniel and I are here. If you have questions about the work that they're doing over at Siam Music Yamaha, an incredible place. Please let us know. We'd love to answer your questions. And maybe, Daniel, I guess we could probably share details about the next event that's coming up, the songwriting session, right?
Definitely. So the reason why I was sharing the Instagram with everybody is because if you go into to the link that we have in bio, that's where all the registration to the upcoming event is going to be. So that's where you can use to see what we're going to be delivering online next. That's where you can see where we're going to be in the world. So you never know. We're covering a lot of ground. Jason, I know we shared some of this in the beginning of the session, but I'm gonna be in Mexico next week. Jason is heading over to Greece. And then we're gonna have some folks in London as well. Um, and then and
And then
that's
it's off to Singapore and Bangkok.
Singapore and Bangkok. That's right. I just my brain froze for a minute.
Yep.
But yeah, so keep an eye on Instagram. If you can make it in person, we all year long there's events like this that you can attend. There's also us global initiative sessions that happen twice a month. These are great opportunities for you to connect with Jason and I and Bree and our team to ask questions. If you're considering maybe, I want to do this. I want to learn more about uh, auditioning, or I want to learn more about, I want some advice on careers in music. I want to see what I can do with this major, that one major. Feel free to come into the session and come talk to us. That's still better than sending an email, right? And if you want to send an email, here's the address that you can use. Okay, I'm just gonna put it here in the chat.
And the cool thing about the session that we're doing today and the session we're going to do coming up on February 17th with the chair of songwriting, Rodney Alejandro, is this performance workshop. We're going to do some playing in person when we're at the School of Music and Arts in Singapore and when we're at Siam Music Yamaha. We'll have some Berklee alums there. We'll have the Berklee teams there. So bring your instruments and come and bring your songs. We'll jam with you. We'll play with you. And Rodney's going to do a session on songwriting and production. So his online section that we're going to do on the 17th, he's going to give you an assignment. And the idea is that we'd like you to come and bring your assignment to the session that we're going to do in person in Singapore and in Bangkok. Come up on stage and we're going to workshop your song, give you some feedback, and maybe play it together in some kind of an ensemble setting. I'll probably bring my guitar. Rodney's an excellent pianist, and who knows, we'll rope some other people in. We'll get Gap in there and some other folks to jam out and bring your song to life. And this is what we do. We love to get together and play music. We love to get together to share our experiences and help everybody grow a little bit more with their music. It was so cool to see our friends here. I haven't seen Carlos in forever. It was great to have Gap and Yudapong here from Siam Music Yamaha. Incredible organization, doing great work. And Yamaha products are obviously wonderful. Can't wait to check out what they have in the showroom when we get over there and see what I might bring back with me. But yeah, Daniel, safe travels to you next week, to our partners in Mexico, and looking forward to seeing our friends in Singapore and in Bangkok soon. Please follow us on social media at Berklee Global Initiatives, and we look forward to getting the chance to play some music with you somewhere in the world soon. All right. Thanks, everybody.